Steve in Chicago, listening to WCPT. You wanted to tell me I'm wrong about Bill Maher?
Well, not that you're wrong. I think that, I mean, I was privy to that debate in that I watched the show, but I think the two sides wherein you had Affleck and Maher representing sort of, either side of the debate, we're sort of talking past one another. On the one hand, yes, Ben Affleck is absolutely correct in that you cannot simply label an entire religion as being fanatical and therefore being the quote-unquote enemy of the West or the United States. Absolutely true. On the other hand, the point that was raised in terms of is Islam or are there religions in general which are more likely or less likely to promote violence or certain kinds of repression that we in the modern world, the 21st century, in terms of what the world and the United Nations and international law recognize as oppression, are there certain religions that are more likely to condone those and to, in fact, exalt those virtues as they believe they are virtues? So again, the repression of women, the notion that the freedom of religion, the freedom not to belong to a religion or to change religions and so forth, and to say that doesn't exist, for instance, in Judaism or Christianity would be false. It does. But by and large in this country, people, do Jesus jokes all the time. They don't need bodyguards the following day. Yeah. As opposed to...
Steve, let me, I get your point. And I got that point, when Bill Maher and Sam Harris made it. Here's the piece that I think is missing for you. And let's make an analogy. Are you old enough to remember when the Irish Republican Army was blowing up the UK?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so if we were to let's dial back into the Wayback Machine, go back 25 years, and you've got a Catholic group in Northern Ireland that is actively killing Protestants. Okay, actively killing them. The Irish Republican Army killing the Orangemen, the descendants of UK occupiers, basically in Northern Ireland, and they tried to kill Maggie Thatcher. They blew up the building next to her. They missed killing her by about 15 minutes. They killed, I don't know if it was dozens or hundreds of people all across the UK. If during that time there had been a country, let's say it was France, that decided, we really think this is cool, right? As a country, we really think it's cool. We're going to make a deal with the IRA Catholics, and we're going to take this IRA worldview of the way that you get what you want against your religious enemies within your own religion is by killing people. We're going to actually make that sort of the state religion of France. And we're going to start executing people publicly in France for violating our religion. We're going to execute people for witchcraft. We're going to execute people for supporting the United Kingdom. We're going to, we're going to promote the idea that what the IRA is doing is not only right, but it's historically appropriate. Go back to the Crusades. We killed millions of people who didn't agree with us, we Christians. This is how it should be. Now imagine if France didn't just do that and say that, but then spent a century and a half and hundreds of millions, perhaps billions of dollars promoting that worldview. We would have a serious problem inside Christianity. That's exactly what Saudi Arabia has been doing with Wahhabism since 1748 and in a big way in the 20th century and now into the 21st century. And I would submit to you that what we are looking at is not evil Islam. What you're looking at is is a sect, just like the IRA arguably was a sect within Catholicism. You're looking at a sect within Islam that is being promoted for the benefit, the political and economic benefit of the Saud family, and is spreading like a thought virus. And that, in my opinion, is the place where it needs to be stopped. I kept waiting for Saudi Arabia to come up in that conversation. Literally last week, they executed a woman in the town square. They have the executions in Jeddah every Friday in public. They beheaded her for witchcraft, right? And so, am I making sense, Steve? Here's Steve.
How that's negating? How is that negating the point that I made? I mean, that in fact substantiates what I'm trying to say. Is that the shortcoming here is not taking nations such as Saudi Arabia to task for what they are doing, because it is akin to what else is going on in terms of other persons who are radicalized within this.
No, what I'm saying is that it's not the religion; it's a sect within the religion.
But that's exactly the point. In order for there to be a sect within that religion and to encompass that many people, because again, another valid point that was made on the show is that it's not just this little, 0.1% of the people who are willing to engage or tacitly endorse this behavior. It's a significant percentage of the people in that.
Oh, I don't disagree. We had in the United States, you had Irish ancestry politicians who were organizing and gathering money and sending it to the IRA at the time that the IRA was murdering Brits.
Absolutely.
Murdering.
That's a little bit of somewhat of a bad analogy.
No, I'm talking about how thought viruses spread within cults.
Yes, except that the IRA was not an organization or body that was terribly adherent to Catholic values, as their practices will demonstrate.
I would submit to you that Wahhabism absolutely is spitting in the face of Muslim values.
Well,
talk to any Sufi.
Right, again, but the question remains is it the case that some religions have an aspect to them that can lend itself to this kind of exploitation?
No. Well, actually, let me rephrase that. Steve, absolutely the answer is yes. But it is not the religion that is driving it. We have, no, Steve, hang on. We have, as Christians and Jews right now have in Holy Scripture, the book of Joshua in the Old Testament, in which God tells Joshua, go to the city of Ai, kill every living being, cut open the bellies of the pregnant women, kill the dogs, cut the king's head off, stick it on a pole out in front of the city. Now, that's in our holy text. There's not even anything that violent in the Quran. So the potential for that kind of craziness is built into all these religions. I'm not disagreeing with you. What I'm saying is it takes more than the religion to make that happen. It takes hundreds of millions of dollars of encouragement by an actor, a state-based actor, or a billionaire actor or whatever, who is using that religion to some end of their own.
Right, and you're absolutely correct. And I would argue that there are certainly wealthy Buddhists, but we don't see Buddhist suicide bombers for a good reason.
Well, and by and large, Buddhism is the only religion. Buddhism doesn't recognize God to begin with. They don't recognize revealed scripture as a second. There's some deep and profound differences, and no nation has ever gone to war in the name of Buddha.
Right, exactly. That's my point. That that some religions, for instance, it doesn't exist anymore. But to the extent that the traditional religion of the Scandinavian peoples that endorse the idea of Thor and Odin and so forth, they believe that death, honorable death, only came in combat. So if you don't fear death and you want to die fighting, then that means you are more likely to engage in a violent kind of life.
But that said, Steve, Buddhism is not without violence. In Myanmar...
Absolutely. But we're talking about degrees. If something happens in 2 cases here and happens in 50 cases here, then you can't compare the two.
Yeah. Well, okay. Steve, I think we both had our say. Thank you for the call.